First of all, I want to welcome everybody to today's session. We got people joining. This looks to be a popular one. Today, for your hosts, we have both and presenters, myself, Mike Gannotti, along with
Nick Aquino.
And we are both, what's our title this year, Nick?
Solution engineers. Yes.
For engineers. Yeah. So, but I'm really excited. We have a great agenda. We're going to be talking about those built-in agents that you get with Microsoft 365 Copilot. A lot of folks I still encounter on a regular basis when I'm with customers. They're not even really aware of them so much. They're just doing the basic chat and asking questions. And the power of researcher, of analyst, to be able to really be game changers in your regular weekly work are tremendous. And I'm excited. We're going to be going through those, as well as some other things like Prompt Buddy, built-in SharePoint agents and templates you can use. And I'm also going to show you how you can even, with one toggle, allow any agents you do build to have the same deep reasoning capability as analyst and researcher. As we go through, though, you have the opportunity to do some guided hands-on. What I'll do, I know when I go through mine, I'm going to paste the prompts that I actually used as I go through. So you'll be able to have an opportunity to take those, try them yourself, do what you want with it. We have live Q&A throughout. So if you have questions, be mindful that I'll bring this back again one more time. We'll look at the endless camera view there just to get you all dizzy. And so if you look at the top, there's chat. We're not using chat. We're using QA. Use the Q&A, post your questions, comments, concerns, make fun of how myself or Nick looks, and we'd love to respond to you as we go. So without further ado, let's jump in. So for today's session, and I'm going to close that. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is that when we talk about Copilot, as many of you are aware, Copilot, the chat interface, it can exist right within Teams. So here I've selected within Teams, my IT has published Copilot here on the side. So I can do it either from in chat at the top, or I can click it here and get the whole chat UI. But I want to encourage all of you, before I jump into researcher, to not use it in, I mean, you can, but I want to encourage you to leverage the Copilot application, that if your IT has not pinned it here at the bottom in your taskbar, go ahead, do a search for Copilot, right, as an app. And then this Microsoft 365 Copilot, when it comes up, right click on it and pin to your, mine would be unpinning, pin it to your taskbar. I want to encourage you to use this as your go-to for researcher and analyst, and there's a reason. You're going to see as we get into it, when we do regular chat, it's pretty snappy. Oh, I got to close my other computer. It has Hey Copilot running on it, and it started responding to me, because you can now talk to your computer with Copilot. But I'm going to encourage you to use this, because you're going to see that with researcher and with analyst, it takes a little longer for things to run because it's doing what we call deep reasoning. But the responses are much, much richer in the information you're going to get back. It's literally like turning on a research team to do the work for you, that real heavy groundwork that could, take quite a while. And so by having this separate piece over here, that allows it to run separately. Now, I can be over in Teams and still do quick chats and lookups and stuff there while that runs. But this allows me to have it go ahead and do all that heavy work over off the side for me. You can also do that in the web view of it. If you don't know how to get to that, I'll just quick show you. We'll bring up here, I'll bring up my home page. And if you go to your home page on your intranet and you go to what I affectionately call the waffle, you'll see Microsoft 365, or it'll say Copilot and you'll click on that, and it will bring up the same view for you. And you can do this also in the web view. So you can do a web view as a side note. You can do it in the agent, over here in the Copilot chat itself. But do yourself a favor and do those searches there. So having said that, I'm going to dive into the first example. We're going to talk about Researcher and its use in competitive analysis. So a lot of times with customers, they have teams in their internal marketing, executives. I recently was on site with a very large healthcare provider. They're internationally well known, and it was with their senior executives. So these were C-suite folks. And one of their areas of concern was how they stacked up to their competitors around a whole area of a specific pathology and how they could better improve those things. And I ran it, what you're going to see in just a second, in Microsoft Researcher, which you can see right here in the upper left. Now, I'm not going to click this one quite yet. I'm actually going to move that off screen because, as I said, I use this regularly with my customers. So in my saved things, I'm going to pull up one of the saved sessions. You would be seeing my customer names. But here you can see I've clicked on it in a demo environment where I don't have that. And when you click on Researcher and provide that, I provided it around them, the particular pathology, which was cardiovascular disease and healthcare. And it provided a whole series of rankings, comparisons to it identified their major competitors. It gave the comparisons. It even then asked me, would you like suggestions for improving? Provided all that. Those were very lengthy reports with all kinds of information, as you're going to see. The value of that to your executives, you can't measure. I mean, you can measure because you've probably commissioned to have these done, or you've had internal teams spending, days and weeks on pulling together that same kind of information and putting it together in a presentation format. I did it in 15 minutes. And so, that's the kind of power that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead, here you can see this is where you're going to enter the prompt for any of these things. So you can come in and ask for anything, and we'll be showing you some in just a second here. I'm going to pull up and bring back my other screen because I ran it internally. And now that's running. So now you can't see my history. Going to open that up for me. Come on. So I came in to Researcher this morning, and as you know, there's a lot of AI companies out there, that like ourselves, that are doing stuff for the enterprise, tout themselves. And I thought, you know what? Let's do a comparative analysis around that. I think and talk about the strengths, et cetera. And so I came in and I asked it, I said, I'm looking to do a comparative analysis of the AI efforts of Microsoft Copilot, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Google Gemini. How do they stack up against one another? What are the relative strengths and challenges of each, taking into account their approach to modern work productivity with AI? We're not talking about consumer stuff here. I love to play with all the stuff in consumer land. I have all the AIs on my phone. But we're talking about getting work done, right? That's what we're talking about here. And I said, how does this play into the company's different approaches? What do investors think about the approaches by each company? And what will that mean for their future growth? Now, before we get into what it provided here, you'll see here this particular box. While when it first started, I'm going to go to the very top, it asked me some clarifying questions. What do you want to look at? Are you looking at, analyzing the initiatives? Are you looking at some financials and sentiment analysis by investor relations, et cetera? And once I answered what I was looking for, it began to reason through. And so with Researcher, unlike the others, you're going to see when you go into chat, regular chat, it's just a very quick response. Researcher does what we call deep reasoning, where it goes through, it clarifies, it looks at all the resources. So in this case, it's looking at my internal resources as well as all the publicly referenceable web ones. And that can include, let me be clear, if you've set up connectors to third-party data sources like Salesforce or ServiceNow or SAP, whatever the case is. We have, Nick, how many connectors do we have in counting?
Oh gosh, I couldn't even tell you. Well, we've had all the same connectors that we've had for graph connectors for years now, right? I
Which
mean,
is
we came
over
out with
a
graph
thousand,
connectors like
right?
in, yeah, it's well over 1,000 at this point.
Yeah.
And
So
you
I
can make
mean,
your own too.
yeah, and you can roll your own. So basically, anything that your enterprise has access to, we can connect to that data and make this a part of this, right? For consuming and bringing that in. And so it goes and it looks at all the sources that you're pulling in, external, internal, all that. And then it begins to reason over that data and start to actually eliminate data, right? It doesn't just provide resources on everything that looks relevant. It starts to further clarify for itself based on the parameters you gave it, all that information. It's looking at all kinds of stuff. Like, look, it even looked at this Chat GPT battle card. And it's searching all these internal, and tells you the different steps that it's taking across all these data pieces. And you can see it's analyzing all these. It's analyzing news. It's analyzing critical comments on the internet, searching for highlights. So it's looking at everything. Under the hood, it's using the latest models that we have. And one thing I want to quickly highlight here, we talk about chat, Microsoft's Copilot being the UI for AI, that user interface. So we have Chat GPT 5, 4, 5. We have the ability to pull in now Anthropic. We've talked about extending to others, right? So that we're pulling in not only our models that we partner with, and models that, quite frankly, we're developing our own in-house large language and small language that we leverage under the hood here. But we also then have the ability to pull in all these other third-party models. So a lot going on here where it's using that in the back end to look at all these data sources, assess different growth, et cetera. You can see it's done a pretty thorough job, right? And then you can see some additional setting up the desktop, creating a report file, creating a markdown file, syncing the report. So the very first thing now I can start to look at says, here's a comprehensive report comparing Microsoft Copilot open, and I have the ability to go ahead and download that document if I desire. But now it gets into the report and I can read it here, and you can see it sets up, and this is very much report-like, right? Pulling it together. So it has an introduction, talks about, breaks them down, first going into Copilot, capabilities and features, pricing and monetization, strengths and challenges. OpenAI, same thing, right? Capabilities and features. So this is an apples to apples, oranges to oranges write-up across each of them. Investor perspectives comes up next. Future growth and the future growth outlook based upon investor prognostication. And it's going in and looking at the different strategies. The conclusion, what works, best for modern work. And it talks about, each of the different things that we excel at. And then it does say, which I was happy to see, because remember, keep in mind, the primary engine underneath the hood is ChatGPT on this particular one. And so, but after all that, it said overall, the optimal AI system for modern work depends heavily on the organization's enterprise ecosystem. Enterprise is standard on Microsoft 365 and Teams, will reach productivity benefits fastest with Copilot. And then it goes on talking about that, and it talks about how we have the deepest integration into existing productivity workflows, which should be no surprise to anyone, right? That's what we do. So, but to get this kind of report, all the work it would have taken, think about that for you to have done that. Once you get a report like this, we then have some options that you should be aware of. So first of all, certainly I could copy the response. Better yet, and I could also, give thumbs up or thumbs down. I do have the ability, let's say, again, it's over here on the side. I can have it read it to me, read the report while I'm doing other work over here. So we do accessibility throughout, out of the box. That's another differentiator, but built right into Researcher, which I love. And then we have edit in Pages, and I love this. So you create this report, but now I want to, collaborate it on with a colleague. So I can select that. It's going to bring all this into Microsoft Pages, which, if you're familiar with Loop, you kind of know what pages are, right? It's going to go in and it's going to take a bit. It's going to bring everything over into here, into this particular piece. And I'm not going to wait for it because it's going to take a while. But then when I'm done, I have, I can share it. We can collaborate on it. When we're done, output to Word, 2 steps, I'm done, and we're moving on. So a lot we can do right here out of the box. And finally, and now my system is overloading, so I can't click the drop down. But you can see I could go in, grab all those. There also is a save to Word right from there and download the report. So if you're doing competitive analysis, use it. If you're looking up information about products and services and the ramifications, use it. Microsoft Researcher is going to do an incredible job for you. Now, when customers at the end of a meeting, if they ask me for additional information about how all it can work, how I can get this or that, what about adoption? Because I don't want to go out and look up the latest adoption links and all that. I'll prompt Researcher. I'll tell it also provide me links to resources, this and that, all the things that the customer wants. I let it run. About 15 minutes later, I have an incredibly thorough answer that usually is a report that spans pages, and that they love, and then it kind of floors them. So that's how I use it on a regular basis for not only competitive analysis, but for research. But Nick, I understand you teased out to me, you use this thing for project management.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want me to show you?
Yeah, show away.
Right.
You take over. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay.
And let you share. Oh, and there's our faces big.
Yes. Thank goodness for those Surface features, right?
That's right.
Take an
And
old
I'm gonna
man, make
go
him look
ahead.
not so old.
I'll start looking at the QA
Okay.
while you're bringing that.
All right. So let me hit the button to slide my screen on. There we go. There we go. Now you should be seeing my screen. So, yeah, Mike alluded to a lot of the different ways on how to use Researcher. I am going to skip into how I use Researcher for project planning. And what I'm about to demo here is not real world materials, but it's a real world example. I can't share my customer project plans with you because you'll see all the nitty gritty is about those folks, but I kind of duplicated the process in this demo environment to try to simulate that. So the way I use it for project planning specifically is I will have a purpose-built discovery meeting with my customer or my partner, whoever I'm working with to develop a project plan. I'll record the meeting in Teams, and then I'll come over here to Copilot and I'll go into the researcher agent after the meeting. Now, I've asked a lot of questions during this meeting, but what I'll do is I'll say, using the meeting, and then I hit the /. Now, I'm not in Researcher yet. Let me get over into Researcher to prove this works. All right, there we go. So using the meeting, and then I hit a /. Now, this brings up a context menu where I can actually select people. You can see Sally over here. This is one of our doctors in our fictitious Smarter Health org. Files. I can come over here in meetings. Now, in my demo environment, I don't have meetings. What I actually did was I took a transcription for a meeting. I copied it into here to pretend that I had a meeting so I could build this out. Um, and what I'll do is I'll reference that meeting and I'll say, using this project meeting, help me create a project plan based on the timelines, the goals, the stakeholders, and everything else that was discussed during this call. And then I reference the meeting. Now, it has every word in the transcript from that meeting to reason over. So now, as long as we talked about it, it's going to have everything that we need to start to build this project plan. So researcher does take a little bit of time to run. I've already pre-canned the output. Mike showed you how you run it in the agent. It goes through and step-by-step deep reasoning. I look at those little reasoning steps as each time it's running its own internal prompt to gather more information. And then at the end, it's just putting it all together for that nice research paper style. So what I'll do here is I'll go into researcher and I'll say, help me create that project plan. And with the project plan, it comes up with this really beautiful document. Again, this was very similar to a project plan that I put together with one of my customers, which was integrating their med school with the provider. So you have all the students and all their schoolwork and everything. They had, they have to be able to bring their own devices to be good, to be good learners. And so we had to basically divide the provider data, separate it using security and different, compliance tools and whatnot to build out this integration plan. So it put together, you could see 28 pages of a project plan. In my entire career of, consulting and IT management, I've never had a project plan this thorough, this deep, the amount of references that it has here. It's usually really high level. This gets down into the nitty gritty, and you can see it even does timelines and graphics. So you don't have to plot out times and try to figure out how it all lines up and all these different pieces of putting this data together. But it's got these great tables. It talks about the summary of the cost, right? It even went out there and found out the prices for our products, Mike, Intune per person, estimated a training and comms materials. So you even get budget work out of this. Again, tons of links, app protection policies for Intune, very important for integrating any kind of device management with secure data. So one key thing about this is when I went through this in the real world, while it took about 15 minutes to generate this, it took about 45 minutes for me to read it. Now, that's extremely important because our motto here with Copilot is trust but verify, right? So this represents your work, your output when you're doing, your job. Just like you wouldn't just copy and paste an article from the internet and send it to your boss and claim it as yours. Read through this and make sure that it's valid first, right? Because what I found is sometimes the numbers are off. In my case, the customer was doing a pilot of 400. We talked about 4,000 users total, so it thought the project was 4,000. Just slight tweaks and modifications. Everything aside from that was technically accurate because I've done these integrations, dozens of times. So it came out great project plan. And then I said, but what if I could actually have it do the scoping document now? Because I'm going to farm this out to either some consultants or an internal group that can take this. And I want to make sure that they know what is in scope and what basically let's not drag this out and overcomplicate. And so it created the scoping document for me. Again, I went through, I validated it and made sure that it was accurate to the discussion that we had. And then I saved it. And you can see we have sponsors in here. We have the various roles that we need to have. Extremely important to have stakeholders for your projects because they're not going to succeed unless you have leadership buy-in. So did a great job at putting the scoping document together. And then I was like, well, let me take it a little step further. And so this is what I call the process of iteration, right? The maturity of your documents start off with the first document. It's that first meeting where we, get the idea and the scope. Then we put it into a project plan. We've got a scoping document. So from there, I said, you know what? I need to put a kickoff meeting together because I'm going to have to host this kickoff meeting. So back into my Copilot app, right? My M365 Copilot app. And then I'm going to also show you that I use it in the browser a lot too, because I can always just open up another version, right? I can start working side by side in different tabs. So I put this in the chat, portal.office.com. This is how I get to Copilot because it takes me right to my main office portal. So, I have my researcher documents. I went through and Maybe this was one of the pages I went through and I looked at it, I validated it, and I go all the way down to the bottom. Jesus, it's a long document, right? Of course, I just right-clicked something I don't think I should have. Oh, I accidentally hit print. Scroll all the way down.
Your printer to work.
Yeah, scroll down to the bottom. So then I went and I did what Mike did. I said, edit in pages. And so it came up and it said, here's your new page. And I pulled this over and I can share this out. I can add it to Notebook. I can copy a page link, or I can even copy the entire component. Because remember, this is Loop under the hood. I could paste this into an email, send it to my boss. He could open that email and start editing it from his email that he received in his inbox. So this way I can meet my teammates wherever they're at, whether it's in a Teams chat message or an Outlook email, the component will still work and it's going to be a live editing component. So from here, I was like, great, that's a page. And I went and I opened it in Word and I saved it. But I took it even a step further and I said, you know what? I need to create a kickoff meeting and I want it to be based on the scoping document and the project document with all the stakeholders there. And so what I did was I created a notebook. Now, we're not really covering notebooks today, but let's just call a notebook what it is. It's a place to store different files and objects and artifacts. So in my med school document here, what I did was I went and I added those pages, right? I can add a page. I can also add a document. So I did not have the med school kickoff document yet. And what I did was I came over into my notebook, my project plan notebook that I created, where I put my project plan and my scoping document. And I said, hey, Copilot, can you help me create a kickoff agenda for this meeting? By identifying the stakeholders and based on the scoping document, here's what it provided me with. So, I've got this great kickoff meeting planned. It put together a very light framework of a PowerPoint presentation, but I wanted to take that a step further. Let's just see. I'll pull it up here to give you a highlight. Again, this is iteration. This is going a little bit further than Researcher, but it's taking those documents that I created from Research, and I'm just showing you how I use it for project management.
Yep.
What I did here is I just went in and I said, I hit the Copilot button. When you open up a new document, you have an option to create a new presentation with file. I did that. I referenced my 25-page or 28-page project plan. I referenced my kickoff meeting. Context menu is a little slow today. I got a lot of, there we go. Referenced my kickoff meeting, and then I referenced my planning document, my scoping document, and then I gave it a prompt and I said, create this rich, highly detailed, graphic intense slide deck that I can use to host my kickoff meeting. And look at this, what it came out with. A lot of people have been complaining about PowerPoint and the output, but oh my gosh, if you do it right, you reference your files, you get good content, it comes out with some really great content here. So, some of the stuff here, stakeholder, team, responsibilities, roles. Look at that image, how relevant it is, right? Sticky notes on a glass, they're in a project, they're in a conference room, they're planning. Another one I liked down here that was really relevant. They're all very relevent, right?
Hey, pull up one of the speaker notes too.
Oh, yeah.
On one of them, because it builds the speaker notes for these things.
And it tells you exactly what file you are referencing the speaker note with and where this content was pulled. So you trust but verify, but if you need to verify it, it tells you right where to verify. Mitigating risks. This is a healthcare organization, right? And so we have a doctor and he's checking. We've got all these different parameters and everything, and it's talking about feedback and mitigation. And then the last slide, just because I'm a mobility guy down deep in my soul. MAM and MDM, and it put a phone there, and it's got the shield, and it's got antivirus. So, when you do this in the way that I just showed you, you're going to have great results. But project management altogether, Researcher just does a great job. I'm not a project manager by trade. I've always joked that they're my handlers during my projects, and I always say, you guys keep me on task, but not anymore. Now I'm going to keep you on task because I have my own project management skill now, and it's Researcher.
I love this. It's a great example, especially because, if you think about projects, right? So you and I have worked in IT for years, and my former life, I was a corporate architect, and we always had project managers that we got assigned to the projects. But there was a lot of projects we did that didn't hit that level where they got a project manager, but all the activities still needed to take place. And so much of it can happen with researcher, kind of that end to end. And there's more coming around project management. I'll just tease that.
Well, in the last piece
Ignite.
I forgot to mention this too, Mike, is what I'll do in my meetings that I have after the kickoff. Of course, I turn on transcription and recording. And what I'll do is I'll open up my project plan. Yep. I'll copy phase 1. And before the Teams meeting starts, I'll kick off Copilot and I'll say, Copilot, here's phase 1 of the project we're going to be talking about. Help us keep on task. And at the end of it, I say, now create a checklist of all the items that have been accomplished during this phase and draft an email for me that I can send out to the team. Copy, paste, send.
That's awesome.
Super easy. Yeah.
That is awesome. Awesome. So that's researcher, folks. If you're not using it today, you should be. So there was a question. I just wanted to quickly address it. It was asked, said, what you are showing is not the included version of Copilot to Office 365 license. It is an add-on subscription, correct? So here's the thing. There's Copilot. Well, people get confused sometimes. Every organization that owns Microsoft 365, they have the rights to use what we call the freemium version of Copilot. That's web grounded, means you can query the web, ask questions, just like any consumer version of one of the AIs, but with enterprise protections. There is, though, what we call the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, which gives you full access to all your internal information and data. I'm going to share real quick, or as you're showing it, I can't. My eyes.
What did you want to see, the consumer version?
Work and web at the top.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So if I go right back to chat here, I have
this
work and web.
Easiest way to find out when you pull up Copilot, if you don't see work, you're not a licensed Copilot user. You're just getting the freemium version. If you are a licensed Microsoft 365 Copilot user, which gives you what he just showed in PowerPoint, gives you Copilot in all your Microsoft applications, plus chat, looking at your corporate data, then researcher and analyst as two of the out-of-the-box agents you get that. Now, IT needs to enable and make sure it's turned on, but that is a part of it. Does come with that subscription, so there's not a separate purchase for those. I just wanted to be clear about that. All right.
Now, really quick, Mike, since we're on the topic, just wanted to just show you. So this is an environment that the user does not have a Copilot paid license. And you just see that you do not see the work and web toggle up here.
Yeah.
But it looks very similar. So you're going to get the chat experience. And you're going to get enterprise data protection. So you still get that enterprise, that's Mike's talking about freemium. Yeah. This is a very powerful paid for agent that's included in your subscription.
But if you want the things we're showing today, then really you want the Microsoft 365 license. And so bug your IT.
Yes.
I have customers that whenever we do presentations with them, they have a system set up where automatically people put in requests, they automatically get them. So they're doing an on-demand kind of purchasing. But invariably during demos, there'll be people, I'm not seeing that, because they have the freemium, not the paid. All right, I am going to share back my desktop, and I'm going to push that out here to the main screen so you're not just looking at our faces, as lovely as they are. There we go. And so real quickly, I did want to highlight, because you kind of showed a little bit of that with notebooks, and then we're going to jump into Analyst. One of the other reasons why I want you to start using the full chat experience, right? Whether you're using it over here or, in that browser view, like in here, is because the chat is going to give you not only the ones we're showing you today, but much more. So for example, if you look at this right here called Create, I highly recommend take some time this week, get in here and play. What it'll allow you to do is create images, create a video. If that PowerPoint that he just showed, if you drop that PowerPoint into here with create a video, it will create a presented video that does not sound like AI talking. It sounds like a person, doing natural commentary. And it not only uses the content of the slides, but of those speaker notes that were generated to create online training done out of the box, right? So you can do that. You can design infographics, create a story, design a poster, edit an image. And here under more, you'll see they have forms, banners, documents, presentations, workbooks, brand templates, if they have all that internally set up for you. But there's a wealth of things you can start doing again to get more productive in the whole agent chat piece. But we want to talk about Analyst next. So Analyst is having your own data analyst on tap. That's what it's about. So if you're a data analyst, you know that you do things like you write Python to analyze trends and data, and you're doing all kinds of things. That's a lot of work. And a lot of us don't have access to people like them. I know I don't. And so what I've done, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. I already put in here. I uploaded, it was a sample data file that had all this information from social media, web information. And there was both hard numbers data, there was sentiment analysis being gathered, right? The commentary, et cetera, from different social sites. And so I uploaded that into this where you click add. I did an upload. You can also add, you can attach cloud files. And then I told it, go ahead and analyze the spreadsheet and provide me information and analytics around that. And you can certainly give it whatever it is that you're looking for. It then went very similar to what we saw in Researcher. It used deep reasoning, start going through. But notice this. So first it read the Excel file, coding and execution. It starts writing Python as it goes to really get an in-depth analysis. This is what people were asking for when we first did Copilot showing up in Excel. They were like, but I want that real deep, not just a kind of cursory thing off the cells. I want to do other stuff. So inspecting, coding, and executing, right? So as it's going through, it's inspecting elements. It's then it's then writing code. It's getting more data back. It's writing more code to go deeper and deeper into this document. And then when it's done, here's what we get. So now I have key insights by sheet because I had multiple sheets in here. So it has support case data. This is all sample data. Social mentions, right? And we have different fields. And so we have all that. Then it gets into visual trends, support cases per day, social mentions per day, summary of the insights. Then it said, would you like to explore text sentiment, topic modeling, or geographic breakdowns? And it actually had those as selectables. I clicked run sentiment analysis on support case comments. And then it went and did the exact same thing, writing code, analyzing the data. It then brought back sentiment analysis. It gave a distribution. It gives the visualizations around that, right? Interpretations and notes. Then it asked, would you like to break down by issue category, identify most negative or most positive, run a word cloud or topic? These were clickable, by the way, for me. As attributes, when I clicked it, it then I said, generate a word cloud. Again, same process. Cleaned word cloud. It says, here's a word cloud generated from support case comments after cleaning and filtering out common stop words. This is part of the guardrails you get with Microsoft 365 and Copilot, as opposed to some other, to go out to a free service out on the internet where it's the Wild West. We have the enterprise in mind. We understand HR. and the requirements for compliance, especially in regulated industries, which Nick and I work with, healthcare and life sciences, which are heavily regulated. But it's done that. It gives the top word cloud. It then gives also the relative frequency of each of the main top words within the cloud, gives an interpretation, gave some more suggestions. I said run a topic modeling on support comments. Again, went through top keywords, the themes, and topic discussions, key insights. And you could see I just kept going. And in fact, at the end here, and then it has some more. Would you like? Now, I had closed it and reopened, so I don't have the clickables anymore. These would have been clickable attributes. But I could come in real quickly if I wanted, and I could say, hey, now that I've come back to it, just paste that in and submit it. It's going to go back again, do its thing, come out with the results. And so I get all this wealth of information. I can ask it to give me, go through and provide me a wrapped up report on the whole thing. But the idea is where you need to do data analysis, you want to put this stuff into PowerPoint, into Word docs, whatever the case is at the end. Analyst lets you look at data, pull that information in, and do the work of what it took a data analyst in the past to do. It's going to do that for you. So now you have a data analyst at your fingertips. To Nick's point, you need to always go back and verify. That's why I love having also a view of the reasoning here, so I can see what it's reasoning. I might want to then ask it down here in the chat, give it a further refinement to address something that, I provided as output that, hey, like his 400 to 4,000, you could go back and say, actually, I was looking at 4,000, not 400. Can you rerun the report? Boom, it'll do that. So Analyst, another great tool if you're somebody who has to look at data, does a lot with data, but you're not a data analyst. I, for one, am not. But our managers always want data and quantitative reporting on things. Like we have to get ready to do our quarterly connect soon, and we want to quantify data. This is a great place to be able to do that. And so you can see here it's gone in, and just in that amount of time, it's now giving me topic labels and counts, visualizations. And this is what I meant about the clickables, right? So now it continues to help me to iterate and go through. And then the beauty of it, since it saved all that in the history, I can go back to my previous report at any given time, and I can go ahead and then continue to work with it and iterate it. So I saw we had questions. The link of the recording. So the link of the recording, I'll put it at the end, but it's going to be, actually, I'll put it right now, HTTPS. Actually, I'll just say.
I put the blog site in that chat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
You
maybe I'll paste it as just its own chat so people have it.
Yeah, put its own chat. That'd be helpful. And can you show again how you were able to pin researcher into Copilot? So this is how you can pin it if it's available. If you don't know where to get it, notice on the left-hand side, it says all agents, create an agent, right? But if I want to find an agent that's been made available that's not pinned here, I can go to all agents. It shows me my agents. This is showing me ones we have internally that have been made available. Some of them are template ones, like we're going to show you. Other ones are internally created. But once you click and open it, you then have the ability for, let's say there's this Power BI one, to come and you can click, see where it says pin, and that'll place it up here and it'll always be pinned for you. So you'll have that agent. So I hope
honestly,
that
I use them so much, they're always at the top. I didn't even think to pin them, but they're just there for me. Scroll down a little bit, Mike, so they can see the built by Microsoft. Because we're building so many agents. I keep making the Midwest weather joke. If there's not an agent that you need, just wait 5 minutes, and like the weather in Michigan, it'll change. You'll have an agent. So
we have customers that are on the preview, so they get the early, what we call frontier aspect. So notice, like, here's two that are in frontier. Surveys is another included, fully fleshed out agent. Skills, find experts, that's there. And Microsoft Ignite is coming up next month. There is going to be all I can tell you is stay tuned. Agents is the topic of Ignite. And we are doing much, much more around agents that you're going to have access to. So some great stuff coming out around that. But that's what I wanted to show you for Analyst. Now, you were going to show some stuff that's out of the box with SharePoint, and then something called Prompt Coach.
Yeah, yeah. Let me share my screen here. I was kind of following along with you, so I was on my built-in agents here as well.
All right.
And so, I have, as you can see, built by Microsoft. And even I just noticed, I guess 5 minutes have been up. Now there's a Microsoft 365 admin agent. So if any of my customers, you know who you are, who are looking to build something like this, we already built it. So thanks for waiting your 5 minutes because we've got it now. But yeah, I wanted to show you Prompt Coach, which is an agent that I use actually quite frequently. So this is what it looks like if you've never clicked on an agent yet. It'll pull it up, it'll tell you about it, and then you can even link to it to share it with friends, or you could just click and open. So Prompt Coach.
Oh, you're not sharing it. You did.
Oh, I have to click the sidebar.
Here, I pushed it.
Too many
there
crickets.
We go.
Okay. Well, and then I undid it. Let me do it. I'll do it. All right.
That's like my wife and I with the car, right? With the door locks.
we lost a TV remote, and then we bought a new one, and then we found one. So now we get our own each. So it happens to sometimes with the TV for us. So I have Prompt Coach here. Let me go back because I really wanted to highlight those. Again, for some of my customers who were asking about the M365 admin agent, it's right there. I just noticed it. So says helps you manage Microsoft 365. And like I was showing, if you wanted to add an agent that you haven't had added to your sidebar yet, this is what it would look like. You'd pull it up and you'd click the add button, and then it would just take you right to the agent. I was off screen when I did that. Oh, here we go. Prompt Coach. So what I really wanted to show you was Prompt Coach. Mike, I even heard you call it Prompt Buddy earlier. I keep calling it Prompt Buddy. It's Prompt Coach. So Prompt Coach is just that. What Prompt Coach does is, I guess let me go back to basics for a second here, just for everybody who's on the call. Sorry, a little warning there. So the art and science of prompting, it really includes these 4 pieces of information. The goal, like, what do you want the prompt to do? What's your goal for this interaction? What's the context? Why do you need it? What's any information that you can provide, files you can references, meetings you can reference, right? So I've given context to researcher by feeding it a meeting, then feeding it a project plan, then feeding it that. So that's the, and also expressing why. In fact, I was just describing the source, which is those files and the transcript. And then how do I want that? Do I want it in a bulleted list? Do I want it in a file format? Is it going to be a visual diagram that I need? Because we can even have it create images and diagrams now. With these 4 elements, you should have a very successful prompt to get you what you need through these Gen AI tools. And so I leverage Prompt Coach to do that. What are the key parts to a good prompt? And now Copilot is going to answer, and hopefully it won't, there we go, goal, context, source, and expectations. So this Prompt Coach is an agent that is designed and an expert in writing prompts. As you are learning how to get more and more out of the Gen AI tools, you'll find that you'll be just building better prompts just automatically. And so some of my customers ask me, they're like, Nick, how did you even come up with that prompt? Because I just whip it up off the fly, because I've been prompting for quite a long time now, and I've got this kind of down in my back pocket. And then Prompt Coach has also helped me have better prompts. So I'm going to come back to Prompt Coach because I want to show you a real world example of how I use Prompt Coach. And at the same time, show you what we have now available for our customers of M365 Copilot is SharePoint agents. So I've already actually created this SharePoint agent. I was looking, this is our shared demo environment, so I don't want to go and create a new one, I'm going to show you the interface under the Documents menu where you would say Create Copilot. It'll be under this AI Actions. So you go into your document repository. AI Actions, the dropdown would say Create a Copilot here. Once you create a Copilot, it's just going to pop open the Edit menu for that Copilot. So this is what it would look like right out of the box if I just said Create a new Copilot agent in SharePoint. It's going to give me the overview. I can name it. In this case, I've named it a Pharma example agent. A purpose, right? What's the purpose of this agent? Sources. So because I've started on this SharePoint, it's automatically going to include this document repository, but I could actually add up to 20 additional repositories for this specific agent. So you can continue to expand the knowledge of this particular SharePoint agent. Over here on the behavior, this is what we call the system over here, the agent instructions. This is what we call the system prompt. It's hidden behind the scenes. It tells the agent how to act. So think of a system prompt like instructing the agent. If you have one that's going to be helping a student with their homework, you might instruct the agent to behave like a tutor, use context that's relevant to a ninth grader. You will be helping this user study for, biology. So you give it those types of instructions, and then the welcome message is just what you would see when you open up the agent. So with a SharePoint agent, I'm going to come back to the screen. Once it's created, it acts and behaves just like a file. So even if people have access to this repository, you can still manage access to the agent itself. So maybe you have 10 people that have access to the repository, but you only want 2 people to access the agent. You can still get that granular with the controls by just managing access like you would any other file on SharePoint. Once you open up the agent, you click on it, it pulls open this nice interface inside the web browser. I can also share the agent, or I can copy a link for Teams. So if I copy the link for Teams, I can paste it right into a group chat. I believe I can come right up here and just do a new browser window and hit the button, and it's going to take me right to that agent. Now, if I open it up in Teams, oh, I don't have my Teams open. That might be why. Just to save time, because we're running short, I can open it up in Teams, and it will behave just like one of those other agents. In fact, I have it right here. So you can see it'll behave just like the other agents, but it's actually in a SharePoint agent. Now, for example, I can ask about, pharmaceuticals that might help with a bee sting. I've got a lot of anti-inflammatory drugs referenced on this SharePoint. They're all fake drug references. I had Copilot actually create the data sheets. So it pulls up an antihistamine, right? And it's going to give you that information. And in my agent, I actually have it giving me a confidence score. And I'll show you kind of how I did that. So any agent, even if you're creating one through Copilot Studio, I'm highly recommending that you take advantage of Prompt Buddy, because what you can do over here, you can go back, Prompt Coach, thank you. You can come over here, edit the agent. Let's go back to that system prompt and how we want it to behave. Now, in my example, here is my prompt. You're a SharePoint agent. You answer questions about the files. The files are pharmaceuticals. End users are going to ask questions about ailments. And I also need a 1 to 10 confidence scale. That's pretty interesting. So I'm going to just copy that. I'm going to go over and open up a new portal.office.com. I'll go over to my agent section. And I'm going to click on Prompt Coach. And please help make this prompt better. I'm going to paste the prompt in there. And Prompt Coach is actually really quick. Immediately, it just goes right to handling those 4 main topics, right? Here's the original prompt, and here's the improved prompt. So goal, context, source, and expectations. I love my confidence scale thing here because it's going to actually do a great job for me. And then here's the final prompt. So I can take this prompt. It also explains why these changes are better. And then I can just come over here and paste it right back into my system prompt. So that way I have an improved agent now that will give me the detail that I need using the context, the source, the expectations, and the goals that I've provided with it. So I haven't actually modified this agent, so I'm not going to save it because I don't want to ruin the system prompt that I have in there right now. But with that, it's there, and you can see, I have it including a confidence rating, and it did just that when I ran it earlier. I kind of highlighted that. So Prompt Coach helps you with all kinds of prompts. I use it when I want to just really have a really good quality agent. And so that's kind of how I use Prompt Coach, but you can use it for anything. I'm using Researcher and I want to build a project plan based on a meeting. See what Prompt Coach puts out there for you.
Ask prompt. That the beauty of that is Copilot is helping you to ask it in the most optimized way. And it's something I do all the time now because I'm not the greatest, about but following the whole structuring and everything. I just ask Copilot, look, how do I prompt you about the following? And it does a great job. All right. We're almost out of time. So real quickly, I'm going to share my screen one last time. And I have a couple of things that I wanted to walk through that I think you'll find valuable. So if you are struggling around this idea of agents and building and doing like he was talking about, we actually have, if you have been enabled, you'll see create agent again here in chat, create agent. When I click create agent, it's going to bring up a view for me. And come on, everything's slowing down on my system. Let me try it over here.
I got updates today, Mike, so I'm sure you're on the same ring that
Yeah,
I am.
I am too. Yeah, see, my demo's coming up a lot quicker. All right. So there are a host of, like we have career coach, customer insights, idea coach, interview. There's a whole range at prompt coach, right? So the beauty of these is twofold. One, these get you hitting the ground running. So if I select prompt coach, notice how it gives me the information around that. It's setting up now behind the scenes. This is also a great way for you to analyze structure. I can come into the configure, and this helps you to start to learn some of that, right? So here's the instructions. They're already pre-built, very in-depth. And if you try to write this kind of stuff yourself, you're going to be lost. So take a look, use Prompt Coach itself. If somebody hasn't set up, use the template, set it up for yourself and get working. It has knowledge sources, ones that are available, right? You can use the web. You can come in here and search for SharePoint sites. You can add ones that your IT has made available, like your ServiceNow knowledge base. You can do code interpretation, image generation, all just with toggles. And then here's the suggested prompts it built. You get up to 6. You can build your own and be done. Great place to do this. Lastly, I mentioned deep reasoning with Analyst and Researcher, which makes those so powerful. If you are building an agent in Copilot Studio, you now have the capability to do it. This is a stupid simple one, just looking at some internet data. But if I come over here to settings, select that, here under generative AI, one of the options is use responses will be dynamic using available tools and knowledge as appropriate. When I select that, a toggle for deep reasoning is available. Now, understand if you're building your own deep reasoning agent, there is based upon the usage, then we get onto that consumption chargeback model. I don't want to be clear about that. But it will, for targeted use cases, as you build an agent, give you that deep reasoning capability. There also is, let other agents connect to and use this one, because you can now connect existing agents to other agents. So somebody was asking about workflow and multiple things. Copilot Studio, you can now start to connect to already existing agents like Researcher and others. Maybe there's one for your ServiceNow instance or something else. You can make them available by selecting that in settings, and then other people build as they're building their agents and connecting things up, they'll be able to connect to and not have to reinvent the wheel. So that's it. we're at 12:31, 1 minute over. There was one last question I want to make sure we hit. I did respond in the Q&A, and they asked about, they have a process of doing things around presentations, spreadsheets, some things that they're doing on a regular basis. And is there a way to, have that Copilot produce it for them? And what I responded is there actually is. A lot of that you can do right now in the interface itself, in the chat interface. You can go through and ask it to do those tasks. But you can also, we have publicly announced, if you create one of those, what we call mega prompts, you can take, and once you create a prompt, a mega prompt that has the things and does the things that you want, you can go ahead and add it to your prompt. So I have this runs and is scheduled for me every Monday morning. So it actually runs at like 4 a.m. So when I'm sipping my coffee and looking at my phone, like Monday when I came on, I had an email waiting with a click, and it, boom, opened it up, and it had all the information that I needed it to do. But you can go ahead, and for any of these, you can have it run, then you can save it, and you can now schedule the prompts to run. We also announced you'll be able to, from here, schedule agents. So take it a step further. And then finally, if you go into Studio, you can build an agent with all kinds of preordained steps for building that. But that's at a highlight. Talk to your account team. As a follow-up, this will be posted to the blog site, aka.ms/HLS blog. The recording, Nicholas put a link directly to it in the Q&A. You can get to it from there. We'll have resources that you can go to for more information about using these, some training that's available online, and play with it. And talk to your account teams. Any last thing you want to say, Nick?
Trust but verify.
Use it.
Yeah.
Don't believe us.
Oh, you know what? One last thing. Try it on mobile.
Yeah.
All those agents you can still use on mobile too.
That's
Chat
the
while you're in the
bomb,
car
man,
on Bluetooth.
dude. The phone. Go. Yeah. And here I do go into Teams to get at everything. But yeah, it's awesome. You get it all on both. So with that, this is Mike and
Nick.
And y'all, thank you for attending today's session. Have a great day. Take care as always, and we'll stop recording now.